Hello, everyone, and as always, welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. And today it's back into the big one, Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. This is our Let's Play by email with the devilish Mr. Lodrick, and it is now February 23rd, 1942, and we are in the setup phase. We've just watched the combat resolution for the 21st and 22nd. There was action all around the map, which has been the norm in this game. It has been everything I hoped it would be for the channel, as Lodrick has been aggressive. I feel like I'm doing short shrift to the word when I say aggressive. He has been everywhere, and I like it. I like it. We're trying to counter it the best we can, but he has certainly done very well so far. So we're going to go around the map. We're going to look at the stats, go all around the map, see where the action is, and then probably go over the U.S. West Coast. We haven't been over there in a while. See what's going on, what I'm trying to ship out, where I'm trying to put it, etc. We'll try to get in as much as we can. But let's go to the stats first and see what happened last time. There we go. The intelligence report. Sorties. Well, we ran 5265. The Japanese ran 8667. That's been kind of a normal ratio there. We've almost run 200,000 sorties during the war so far, but look at that. The Japanese 312,000 air-to-air losses this time. We did quite well. 10 for the Japanese, 5 for us. Okay. Nobody was destroyed on the field. Destroyed by flak, we have none. Operational losses, we took 5. The Japanese took 8. So all in all, in the air this time, one of our better turns so far, as we're starting to get better aircraft and better pilots, specifically the Hurricane 2s, well, the Hurricane 1s as well. Any of those British fighters over in the Rangoon, Colombo area really can stand on their own 2 feet against the Japanese. They've got very good pilots when they come on the board, generally speaking, and that is something you don't have with the Dutch or the Americans early on. So they're starting to hold their own a little bit out there. We're doing a better job, I think, of not just needlessly losing aircraft. Some of that is completely unavoidable, like in China, for instance. You're just going to lose most of those Chinese fighters. Some people just hide them, but usually I'll put them out there for a little bit of cap. Well, those got blown out of the sky very early. We have 545 political points, just as a rough rule of thumb. You need about 650 to buy a regiment out to free it from its command and get it off the U.S. West Coast. So we're getting close to getting another one out here. Japanese score. Well, he's about got us what doubled up here. 14,766, 75,18. As I always say, it's 4-1 is what you're looking for. You just can't allow it to get to 4-1 because, well, the Japanese could get a sudden victory if that happens in 1943. Allied bases controlled 480, Japanese 357. The points lost from aircraft 964 to 606. So you can see different aircraft have a few different point values, and that's why it doesn't, completely correspond to total losses. I was just looking, for instance, air to air, we're 521 to 214, 127 to 0, 1294. We've destroyed 94 by flak, 298, 296. You would think the point discrepancy would be wider, but, we're shooting down better planes generally speaking. Allied Army lost points 6550, Japanese only 121. I know we talk about this often. I say this is too much. Really, it's not necessarily that this is just too much. This is too little. You've got to make the Japanese pay much more for taking the bases they've taken. He's just been very good about, softening us up with the bombing campaign, and there is a lesson to be learned there. Allied ships sunk 389, 3136 on the points we've lost because of that. The Japanese 6 and 27, but we really have no visibility on that. Let's go look at the or I said the Japanese. There were no Japanese ships sunk last time. Let's look at our Allied ships that were sunk. All of them very low point totals. Now I talked about that during the combat resolution. We were losing some ships that were going down. Now they were actually damaged not this combat resolution, but the one before on the attack on Colombo. And then, some during this turn, some of them were hit again. But, it wasn't a huge conflagration, not like last time where we lost some high value ships. No real high value ships here. 5, 6, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. I mean, these are just the cost of doing business for the most part. The little AKLs, you get a million of them, and that's barely, hyperbole. I mean, you get so many of them. Even the AP we lost this time, which usually APs could range from 10 to 30 points. This was a small Dutch transport, so it was only 4. You never want to lose destroyers. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to soft pedal it. I'm just saying, these are the kind of ships that if we're gonna lose ships, that's the kind of ships you want to be losing. Let's go to our top pilots. We talked last time. As a matter of fact, Stanley, if you look at the comments last time, Stanley had a nice little biography on this guy. You may not be aware of this, but a lot of this game is truly historically modeled. I mean, the real names of pilots and ships captains and whatnot. And so this guy is the real deal here. Stone, he's in a Hurricane 2B trop, and you can see they've very quickly raised, up here in the rankings because that is the best aircraft we've got on the map, and they're doing a nice job. I think he's over in Rangoon. Is that right? He's in 221. Yep, he's in Rangoon and fighting off the Japanese the best he can over there. Let's look at those top pilots. One of these times we'll get into pilot replacements. I mean, it's a huge part of this game, obviously. Let's see what kind of planes we have coming in shortly. We get more Hurricane 1 trops in at Aden. Those are very welcome. They're very good aircraft. They've been doing a good job for us in this game. We get a lot of Marine aircraft out here in San Diego. Now, somebody corrected me in the comments. I did want to point that out when it came to these aircraft here. I had said anytime you kind of see this F or whatever, they're carrier aircraft. Well, that's not necessarily true. Now, they all come on carrier capable. They're not carrier trained. But the reason they have more, numbers and letters here is really because they're Marines. They're Marine aircraft. And so, yes, you can put them on the carriers, but it's not like, they're restricted to carriers or something. But the ones that have these extra indicia, uh, that's because they're Marine aircraft as opposed to Air Force or Army. And you have aircraft from all 3 branches for the U.S., so just something to keep in mind. So we do get more of these in at San Diego. Some of these actually, you can use them for training aircraft for your carrier pilots, and you definitely want to have one group of them doing that. You may take another group and put them out on the islands. They can go to those Marine Air Commands and go out there and protect some of the islands in the South Pacific. So just something to keep in mind there. Let's go to ship availability. Let's see what we got coming in. I know you guys probably know this by heart. We go over it every time, but I like to always go look. These short range subs, we talked about them last time. You got to ILM hop them out, but they use the Mark 13, I think. No, the Mark 10. They use the Mark 10 torpedoes, so they're actually effective as opposed to the Mark 14. And so you may want to get these out into the Pacific, even though they're fairly short endurance. If you skip them out on the islands, get them refueled all the way out there, then you can just have them circle a place like Suva or Pago Pago or Nomaya. They can be very effective that way. We also get a number of destroyers in at Balboa. Now they're going to sit at Balboa until the Hornet makes its appearance, and we also get some British destroyers you see here. Get a lot of tankers in at Abaddon. But here's the Hornet. We're now 16 days away, a little over 2 weeks of getting our next carrier. And when that comes in, we'll talk about that in great detail, I should say, how to set up, your carrier, how to make sure you've got it operating kind of the way is intended. We'll go through all that when the Hornet comes on the map. Um, let's see, ground reinforcements. Always looking. Why did I hit attach to? There we go. Wrong way though. There we go. Uh, I'm always looking for Chung King. Every time we get something into Chungking, I get excited here. 84th Chinese Corps coming in, 257 on the assault value, and that's how these corps are generally set up with about a 250 AV assault value. Those come into Chungking, and we need all the help in China we can get. I think I'm going to spend an upcoming episode all in China because we're under great, great pressure there. Otherwise, is there anything really worth pointing out? We get another Marine Defense Battalion. I put those out on Johnston, Midway, Palmyra, Christmas, around the corner. I think we'll have, once that comes on, we'll have seven of them, one through seven of the Marine Defense Battalions. And I like to take all of these islands that are kind of our front line and put the Marine Defense Battalions upon them. Anything else? It doesn't look like anything too exciting. We'll talk about more things as they come on the map. So those are our stats for this time. And again, he's almost a 2-to-1. We've just gotta hold the line, boys. Hold the line. Let's go all the way around the map, starting like I like to over here in the Arabian Sea. Look at Abaddon and Aden. Same old stuff. We got some new ships or some ships in port here. I'll be setting those up and you immediately get them out. Now at Aden, you want to keep some cargo ships here. I usually keep my fastest ones here because they help the troop transport. So you want your transports at Aden. You want your faster cargo ships or some. You don't, well, let's just look at Aden. What do we have here? What do we have? We'll sort by type. We have a destroyer, the Hotspur. I think this just came in. If you look at it, ASW 8. We'll want to get that either keep it here for the Hermes, which is sitting here getting repaired, or we'll send it down for our new carrier that's sitting at Cape Town, the new British, I think that's the Illustrious that's down there. We'll send it with that because you obviously want your ASW 8, the best anti sub that you've got, to be with your carriers. I'm hiding these AMCs here, our merchant cruisers. They are good when you're on the offensive. They're just point sucks when you are on the defensive because they can't really do a whole lot and they're worth a hell of a lot of points. Well, I'd say that Cornwallis is worth 4. Well, that wasn't a good example. Let's look at the Hector. The Hector's worth 26 points. All right. It's got no anti submarine ability. Okay, that's not great. It does have some guns, and the guns can be effective, but you use them when you're invading somewhere as invasion support. They can also carry some troops and cargo, so you can put them, with your transports, and they have the guns to fire and do some bombardment. So usually with the AMCs, I hide them somewhere and I just wait until we're on the offensive. We have a few APs, not as many as I'd like, for the transports, just sitting here. Then we've got a bunch of 12s. I can tell you, I'm going to batch these 12s up. And when I say 12s, I mean by speed. I'm going to batch these all up and send them to Cape Town. I will keep the 14s and the 13 speeds here. Why am I doing that, or what am I talking about here? Well, if you look at the APs, your transport ships, they're usually going to be 14 or faster. Just generally speaking, transports are faster than your cargo ships. Well, you don't want those transport task forces being held back because every task force moves at the speed of its slowest ship, right? So if you've got a bunch of 14s, or I mean, let's take it to its absurd uh, point, which is you have some transports that are kind of fast transports that are 25, 27 speed or whatever. If you put a 12 speed cargo in here, that's all that's as fast as that task force is going to move. And so you want to be cognizant that you put your faster cargo ships where your transports are, or where you're going to get troops in. For me, that's Aden and Los Angeles. I mean, those are the main two places where I send, the vast majority of my transports, and I have all of my troops go out of them. That the new troops that we get that would need to be moved by sea. So, just something to think about. Take some of your faster transport ships, send them to Aden and Los Angeles, so that they're not slowing down the transport task forces. Okay. But I will batch up a bunch. We've got a lot of these 12s. Now, the reason I haven't done it beforehand is when you batch them up into the task force, they're going to pull on our fuel. And we were a little bit low on fuel at Aden, but there's no reason to have all of these 12s here, especially ones with big endurance and big capacity. This is just wasted sitting here. This should go to Cape Town. And so we will be sending those out. These 55s, they're speed 13, but given that they have 55 500, maybe I'll batch those up too. So anyway, you can kind of see what I have sitting here at Aden or why it's showing we have ships at anchor. Um, Moving down here, it's the same old jazz. It's straight from Abadan into Karachi. New troops come into Aden to Karachi. Not rocket science there. Let's move down and see where his main task forces are here. We've got the one here that has what appear to be three battleships, three destroyers. They are essentially running escort with his carriers, or for his carriers, I should say. Now, his carrier task forces, the way it seems that he structures these is he puts at least one or two battleships in here. I think that's a smart thing to do just because it gives you so much more anti-aircraft capability. And so, well, I don't want to get into a long thesis about how carrier task forces were set up in World War II, but I can tell you there weren't generally a lot of battleships directly in the carrier task force. They were more like this, escorting around with them. But in his case, and again, I think this is a good idea, is he puts a couple of battleships in here with, you see three light carriers, two cruisers, or three cruisers. Now, the cruisers, usually would be in here because for their size, they have a lot of anti-aircraft ability, and that's what you're looking for. Because when you think about it, you're putting together a carrier task force, and we'll do this, in one of these videos. When you're putting it together, what are you really looking for? Well, what could possibly threaten your carriers? Well, submarines or aircraft. It's not often that, whether allies or Japanese, that a battleship task force is going to make it all the way to your carriers, fire its big guns at you, the surface guns, and blow your carrier out of the water. They just never get that close because the planes would take them out before they got there. So, really, your two main risks, I guess, are submarines that sneak in and get into the same hex as your carriers and get off a lucky shot. Um, that's one way. The other is obviously enemy aircraft, so carrier battles, other or land-based. You got to always be careful with your carriers that you try not to get them within 8 or 10 hexes of land, to where aircraft from land-based aircraft can get out to them, right? So that way you just kind of remove that risk from your equation, and it comes down to submarines and anti or other aircraft. So what do you need to defend against that? When you build it, you need good destroyers in there, or destroyer-like ships that have good anti-sub capability. In this game, again, that runs from 0 to 9, and the British have a bunch of 8 level destroyers. The U.S. starts with level 2, but now we're starting to get some sixes for the U.S. as they up their anti-submarine capability. How many do you want in there? Well, that's just kind of personal preference. I would say probably at least 3. But when you're talking about a carrier task force that maybe has 3 or 4 or 6 carriers in it, you probably want 5 or 6, to be honest with you. Then you want cruisers, light cruisers, to provide anti-aircraft, right? And so, as the enemy aircraft come in, of course, there's going to be air-to-air combat, but if it gets past your air screen, a carrier is going to have some anti-aircraft ability, but you may as well put in as many ships in there that can also shoot down enemy aircraft as possible. And so, I think historically you would say the cruiser was used for that most often, but he's putting battleships in there because they have the highest anti-aircraft capability. That's why you would want to do it. And this is a game. It's not necessarily real life. I think it's a good plan to get as much anti-aircraft into these task forces as possible. So you can kind of see the setup here. He's got 72 fighters, 143 bombers. He's run roughshod through Colombo. He sprung his trap on us at Bombay. I say it wasn't really a trap. We were sitting here. He sprung his surprise on us, and now he's floated back down this way and just, obliterated what was at Colombo on his way by. It was a great, great mission for him out here, and we didn't make him pay enough. Now, he did lose quite a few planes, um, and it is a war of attrition with Japanese pilots, but I think he's more than happy with what he accomplished up here, certainly, and I'm unhappy with it. So I would guess to say, or I would say that he won that little battle within the war, certainly. So he's floating back here. He's almost certainly got to go back to where he's basing, and I suppose that is probably Singapore. I can't imagine. I don't know why he would go beyond Singapore. He controls all of Malaysia now. The only risk that he would be running there is that we do have naval bombers at, let's say, Palembang or one of these other bases. But quite frankly, that's not really much of a risk. He's got enough aircraft to blow any kind of offensive mission we would do out of the sky long before we get to his carriers. So I'm 99% certain he's headed back to Singapore. He'll get a quick rearm there, and who knows where he goes next. Down in the Indian Ocean, I'm not sure there's a whole lot to say. I mean, you've got big swaths of ocean out here where nothing is going on. Where is this headed? This is headed over to Perth. Okay, so let's go back up to Cape Town. This is our kind of line that goes into Perth. We bring them in. Now these guys are probably going to, well, they're going back to Cape Town. They must have gone into Albany or Esperance here, and then this line is the line going to Melbourne. It usually comes, it's going to come down here. You can see it's almost a straight line out of that. They are headed back to Cape Town, and to Perth. Okay, and this is AKs. We do not have escort with this right now, so we're going to have to get a destroyer to scramble out here out of Perth and come meet up and merge with this so it does have an escort in. He's had a lot of submarines out in this area. I mean, he's no dummy. He knows where we're coming into. That's why I have routed some stuff south towards Albany and Esperance. Just kind of a different look because usually the Japanese player is going to focus on Perth as well he should. I've got this group, these AKs. The reason they have this kind of goofy, uh, I guess, return path here is because I was bringing them all the way around to get away from these carriers. Well, they got well away. They're headed actually back to Mombasa. Is that what I want them to do? I think so. We don't need their home port to be Adu, though. We want it to be Mombasa. Okay, that doesn't change their path because this is their destination. This is fine. They should be fine. I mean, his carriers are moving this direction, right? Down at Cape Town, what's cooking in Cape Town, as they say? Dauntless, we've got here a light cruiser. Now, if we look at that, its anti-aircraft's really only a 101. I mean, that's not going to do a whole lot when you consider that a battleship often will have over 1,000 points of anti-aircraft. And so, 101's not good. You got to wait for these things to upgrade really to put them in a carrier task force. Now, this is fine with its guns to send it if you're going to bombard a coast or, invasion support, something like that, but not really for a carrier task force. It's just not enough AA to make it worthwhile. We got a tanker here. We got a lot of AKs here that we need to fill up. We also have some APs. You want to keep a couple here, because you do from time to time get things into Cape Town. It's not that when I say things, infantry units, which is what you would care about when it comes to APs. You do from time to time, but we probably don't need these really good ones like the Roranga. I mean, this is a really good craft, right? 22 speed. It's got a pretty decent capacity, really good endurance. We need to send that up to Aden. These AKs need to batch these up, get them going to Perth. The problem has been that we've been a little bit low on fuel over here. That is not a problem now. I've been bringing fuel in here like crazy from the US East Coast. It's now up to 88,000 tons, so we've got plenty here to, dump it into Australia, and we've got to get it over there. We're very low on fuel in Australia, so we've got to start getting more over there. Supply, of course, you're really not going to have much of a supply problem at Cape Town. But let's just look at the ships that we've got going out towards Perth. As you can see, we've got a lot of them. What's on this transport? Oh, look at this. Now, this is a big task force here. 182nd Infantry, 132nd Infantry, 754th Tank Battalion, and then, we had to put these on two craft. But this is a big troop task force. Where am I going? Melbourne. All right, so I'm taking these American units. I took them all the way from the US East Coast to Cape Town, had this refuel, and now it's headed to Perth. And I am dumping a bunch of US units into Australia. I'm dumping, all the Australian, those units up there into India. So to make up for that, I'm putting a bunch of American forces into Australia to kind of fortify Australia a little bit. And you can see, I mean, there's quite a bit of firepower, right? The 182nd, it is part of the American Infantry Division, America 1 Infantry Division. You can see I've got them on task forces 132nd, 182nd. Those are the ones on this task force. We still have the 164th Infantry Regiment back at LA. This is what I'll buy out, right? What command did I put these guys under? Just Pacific Fleet. All right, so we're going to buy this out in Los Angeles. We'll put it under Pacific Fleet. Oh, hold on. I'm on this task force. Sorry, sorry. Exit, exit. Let's go to Los Angeles very quickly. And we'll look at that regiment. There it is. You can see it's part of this infantry division, the same one we just looked at. If we bought that out and we put it, it's right now Pacific, or I'm sorry, West Coast restricted. If we, oh, see, we don't have enough points. Now, I said the rule of thumb generally is about 650 points, but this is a fully built infantry regiment. I mean, it's ready to go. It's not missing any spare parts. So it's 714 points to change. We have 545. So it won't even allow us to change it. This is all grayed out. But as soon as we have 714, we'll buy this out, we'll put it on a transport, and then over in Australia, we'll put that division back together most likely. We'll see. I mean, we may need parts, each regiment to be at a different place, just depending on how the defense looks. But again, generally speaking, I like to put divisions back together because you get some synergy and they, together they're worth more av than they are, the sum of their parts. So I would like to get that put back together. We could even put an objective on this over in Australia if we get a sense of where I'm going to put the other regiments when we get there. Now, one thing you may have noticed out there is that, oh, I'm on Los Angeles. I've got a transport ready to go there, a transport task force. But let's go back over here and look at the transport. Well, there it is. I've got this going into Melbourne. Why is that? Well, we just looked at this path down here, right? This path into Melbourne, and this shows us the path it's going to go, is way south. I mean, here's Perth. Look how far down here you are. Now, is there a chance that there's a Japanese sub down here? Well, sure, there's a chance that there's a Japanese sub on every hex on the map. Uh, Excluding land hexes, but hell, I'm not even going to throw that out. It's possible. No, not really. But the chances that you're going to run into a Japanese sub down here and really a surface fleet of any sort down here are almost nil. Now, he may send a sub down here from time to time, but it's going to be a one and done. It would get here and essentially have to go right back to base. These early war submarines, anyway, don't have anywhere near the endurance to go out here and sit for a while. And so I like to bring these way south to go to Melbourne. What else do I have up here? It looks like I've got a surface ship or two. Yes, the Ramillies and the Resolution, well, along with two destroyers, the Alden, which only has an anti-sub of two, and the Barker, which also only has a two. Well, I'd like it to be better than that because we're taking two of our really good battleships here. Well, I say really good. We don't have too many British battleships on the map right now, and so where I'm taking those two, I've got them going out to hex 653. Why is that? Well, they came onto the map over here. Um, let's see, hold on. How do I have this set up? Where is it going? It's going to Cape Town. I brought it on the map, and oh, that's what it is. I brought it on the map. Now it's retiring to Cape Town. So these had come on, I think, at Aden. Anyway, I bring them into Cape Town. When I get these two battleships to Cape Town, I'm going to find some better destroyers somewhere, pair with them, and I'm going to take them to Australia. We've been hiding quite a bit with our better ships. Now, he did find us at Bombay, so even the hiding didn't work. But he's got his carriers up here at Singapore and over at Port Moresby. He has not shown any indication to bring his carriers down to the Australian coast, but he has harassed us with surface fleets down there, right? So I'm going to bring some battleships into that theater so that if he continues to do that, we're going to try to spring a little trap on him if we can, send kind of some low value 1 or 2 point cargo ships up to Darwin, let's say. And when he jumps on them, we're going to have some battleship, a battleship task force put together to try to strike back at him and catch him by surprise a little bit this time. Then we have a bunch of cargo, a bunch of fuel, all headed to Perth out of Cape Town. We've got a lot of stuff coming in from the East Coast to Cape Town, East Coast of the U.S. That's that one. We already looked at that. I better hurry. I'm already running out of time. Holy cow, these hours go by fast. Um, India, I'm going to kind of skip that a little bit this time. You can see the situation in and around Rangoon. He's got what appears to be a big force here. Now, we're only showing 2,500 troops. I guarantee you that's not the case. It's showing us bright red, of course, which means he's got more strength here. He's also, Chiang Mai has what appears to be 17,000 troops. We should have a decent detection level on there because we've actually bombed here a couple of times. So we have a little bit better idea detection level wise what they've got. We've got an 8 of 11, excuse me, detection here. So that's pretty good. 8 and 11, we've talked about detection levels before. So we have a really good idea what they have here, but down here we only have a 3, right? So at one time we had some pretty good detection here, but now we haven't looked there in a while. For obvious reasons, we don't want our planes blown out of the sky, but we don't really know what's here with a detection level 3 for the current. So just something to keep in mind. He's probably got more here. You can see his aircraft sitting here. We're showing 154 fighters and 104 bombers. That's a lot, considering at Rangoon we have 2 fighters, 9 fighters, 7, so we're up to 18. We have 18 fighters here. He's got over 100, right? It's an uphill battle. I mean, we could get more than that because we've got a great number of them damaged. We've got 7 here that are either in maintenance or damaged. We've got another 9 here, but we're still overwhelmed by aircraft. But we've got to keep putting them up in cap and start, continue to try to whittle him down. Let's look at Colombo really quickly, and we'll look at our aircraft situation here. We've got 3 Hurricane 2A drops in that squadron, another 3 here, and 5 Hurricane 2Bs here. So we've got a grand total of 11 planes that are ready to go. You can see ready here, Hurricane 5, 3, and 3. Ugh. Then we have the fighter bombers, the Fulmer 2. We've got 3 of those as well. I don't have these on upgrade, but we should have all of these on replacement because we want these fighters replaced first priority into Colombo. So we put those all yes on replacement. You can always then go back and turn these to no, like the Lysanders. I mean, there's just really no reason to replace these, so we'll turn replacements off. No replacements. Just a quick way to do it is to come to the airfield screen and then you can turn them all on, allow replacements. And then the Blenheims, I don't think I'll have these be the replacements on either. We'll turn those no and no. And now when you look at the screen, you'll see here replacements. No on the Lysanders, no on the Blenheims. But we've got all of our fighters on yes. I want those replaced just as quickly as possible. You can see over here, they're all 222 group for the most part. These Blenheims are 223. We'll probably move them around over here once we get Catalinas that can run this search out here for us, and we don't have to use bombers to do it. So that was Rangoon. Over in China, well, we've got our kind of spear out here at Wu Chao. He will eventually come here out of Canton and try to push us out of Wu Chao. I'm building up Kuei Lin. Why am I doing that? Well, it's worth 60 points to the Japanese, so he's almost certainly coming there at some point. So is Nanning. Nanning and Kuei Lin are both worth 60 points. Lu Chao is only 20. Wu Chao is only 20. So 20, 20. That'll kind of guide you where he's probably going to go. He'll probably come here because if he comes here up this road, even though this is tough terrain and whatnot, he cuts off Nanning from kind of the center of the country. Then Nanning is, you know, reliant on getting some kind of supplies through these mountains. That's tough go. But here it's on the rail network, right? It's on the major rail or major roads to major rail. And so if he comes here into this area, he can cut off Nanning. That's a 60-point town. Henyang is a 60-point town as well. We've got a lot of troops here right now, so many that we can't supply them all. You can see we've got an 1835 composite AV here, so we have got a lot of troops here. I need to spread them out a little bit because we just can't supply that many at one base unless it's a place like Changsha, which has 1994. It's only the yellow exclamation, which means we're low on supplies, but it's not critical. Um, and so Changsha, you can carry this many troops. Hanyang, you really can't. And so I'm going to start putting some of them down the line to Kuei Lin, and then down to Nanning potentially, or down to Wu Chao. Probably Wu Chao. And then if they get hit hard, they can just retreat up this mountainous road into Kuei Lin. Fine. I've also got some troops sitting back here, so they're not all just on these two bases, right? Um, we had that unit that was out here, no, right here, I guess. That was behind. Is that right? I'm trying to think. Was it Wu Chang they were behind? Hang Kao, Sin. Oh, it was Sin Yang. It's right here. There's the shows you we had a battle. We had that stack that had just gotten bullied about right to the south or to the east. I'm sorry, to the east of Sin Yang. They surrendered last turn, so that's gone. This massive stack we have here is a problem. And it's not a problem for the Japanese, it's a problem for us. If we look at this, we've got a combined AV of 3198. It's our biggest stack in the game, and they are trapped here. We've got to get them out somehow, and you can see he's covering hexes. Now, how strong are these things? It shows us they have 13 enemy units here, 8 here, only two here, but this is the darkest color, so he's got the most strength here. We probably don't really have a good indication of how much strength he has here. We're going to have to push our way this way somewhere along the road here. We'll see. He's walked into Yan'an as I try to get this stack out. This stack has an AV of 614. Not bad. I'm going to try to beat him to this road. You can see the little divot. He's moving this way. This is moving this way down the road. We're trying to get to the road before he does and come down here. Now, once we get down here, I don't know. I mean, he's got a strong force. He had over 100,000 troops in this Battle of Sian, so he's got a lot. And you can see here he's pressuring Lan Chao. That's a huge problem. Lan Chao is worth 300 points to the Japanese. All right. Um, signing is worth 300. This is 600 points right here. I mean, if we go down to what you think is important, Changsha, 60. These two together, 600. And I've been a little too lax about getting troops up here. I am now rushing. I'm going to be rushing troops out of Chungking. Any reinforcements we've gotten, if we can get this stack out of here, we may have to bring them up here because you just can't lose these two. Now, maybe one of the two, but you can't lose both. It's way too many points. And if we move up here, I mean, this is worth 20, but it's a long ways away. 20. Hami is worth 60. There are points to be had up here. 60 at Uramichi, Wasu. Yeah, straight up the Wasu. 20 points there. But these are the two big ones. And so, you've got a major road that connects here, but I'm sure he's going to be coming up this road to try to squeeze us here. So I'm trying like hell to get things up here to Lan Chao. I wish I would have fortified this a little sooner. Philippines, he's just doing mop up duty. Now, these guys in Cagayan have lasted forever with very low supply, but they're still there, man. They're still kicking. Cagayan is worth what? 20 points. You can tell I'm worried about the points. I'm looking everywhere at it. He's landed in the Dutch East Indies. He's here at Semarang. He's going to be bringing a lot of stuff into Semarang, and then we'll see which way he goes, Surabaya or Batavia, or both. Hell, I don't know. And he may land somewhere else, but it will fall eventually, but we're still standing strong there, still standing at Palembang. He doesn't really have anything close. He hasn't landed anything there. What is this? Ship sighted 8. They're moving southeast with 2 light cruisers that we know about and 6 other ships that are unidentified. You can see here we've got a sub in the area, a sub in front of Batavia, a sub sitting right off Semmering. When I say a sub, it's actually a task force. You can see there are 2 subs in this one, 3 in this one. I like them in packs. 2 in this one. I've got subs over here. Looking at this, when he's coming in this way, the Dutch subs have really underperformed for us. We're still holding strong at Ambon. I'm trying to get freight into Darwin. We did succeed this time. He hasn't harassed us down here in a little bit. You can see I've got 2 subs in a task force just kind of laying in wait here. But I'm trying to get as many 1 or 2 point AKLs into Darwin as we can. Perth, I'm going to kind of skip over that this time. You get the idea. What are we doing out here? Moving things up the coast, because look where he is. He's now going to take Moresby shortly. He's got his carriers here. What's going to be in danger? Cookton, Cons, Townsville. You really need troops in all of these places, and you can see I've got them in Bundaberg. I'm now moving things in. I've only got a base force here, but I've got things moving up. Strategic move, because as the Japanese player, what's he looking at here? You may say, well, he's probably going to come to Cookton. It's the closest, or Cooktown. Um, Probably not, actually. He's probably going to land down here somewhere. Why is that? Well, he splits you in half, right? How is Townsville going to get supply if he lands at Rockhampton? I can tell you, out of the 100 games of this I played, the Japanese player is, when they get far enough where they could even dream of invading Australia, they've landed at Rockhampton, I don't know, I want to say 50 or 60% of the time. That's because it's the biggest port, air, and otherwise in this area, and it splits you in half. Now, all of a sudden, Townsville and all of these places up here are completely isolated from Brisbane and Sydney. And so I always really beef Rockhampton up. Bundaberg could also, it could happen there. I mean, It's a port size 2 and an air capacity 1, where Rockhampton is a 3 and 3, I believe, right off the top. So, you know, if they do bypass this, uh, you know, well, gosh, here I'm going to end up telling you, hey, they could land at every town, as if you didn't know that. I would say Townsville is the second most popular place just because it's closer for the Japanese player. A more cautious player will come here. Very seldom cons are Cooktown. It's almost always into Rockhampton or Townsville. I've had a guy or two try to take Brisbane. That's very hard for them to do. You're on the major rail. You can get a lot of stuff up here from Sydney. Actually, had one guy that fainted at Brisbane, then landed at Sydney. Luckily, I hadn't had enough time to get the strategic move on, so these guys hadn't moved. All they had to do was unpack, and then they just knocked it straight off the beach. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Out here in the South Pacific, always building up Auckland. I have a lot of stuff coming. It's my staging base in the South Pacific. Nomaya, Suva, we've talked about these so many times. Pago. I've now put something on Penryn. We've got things coming into Canton because he's allowing us to. So I'm going to do it. I've dropped off the 2nd U.S. Marine Corps Parachute Battalion. We've got a base force. We've got engineers out there. And I've got more stuff on the way. I also put 2 Catalinas out here running a really wide arc. So hopefully, now I probably could do the recon at a very directed area. Like, what's the point of having Catalinas on Canton fly back here? So I'll probably change that this time and just make it, right here. That's really where their worth is going to be. I can tell you very shortly here, we will be more and more building up Luganville and Afate. I've now landed a base force at Afate. I've landed a base force at Luganville, and I've got troops on the way. All right, and then I've also got, oh, what is this? A Koi. One of the Koi is coming out here to Luganville to start building that up. And then we'll get Catalinas out here. If you put a Catalina in Luganville, it can see what the Japanese are doing all the way up to Shortlands and almost to Rabaul. And so we're going to get Catalinas there and build up the airfield when we can. The only thing we spotted out here is the 1 sub. Got all kinds of things coming through here. I've got my refuel staging, restaging bases at Rarotonga, Tahiti, Bora Bora. The game always has things set up for Bora Bora as they come on the map, and I'm kind of like, I'd rather do it at Tahiti. If we look at Bora Bora, it's got no port and no airfield, whereas Tahiti, just south of that, starts with a 1 and a 1, but you can build it into a 6 and a 5 if you wanted to. So I build up Tahiti. Rarotonga, Tahiti, Haiva-Oa. Those are the 3 back here. And then up here, it's, of course, Suva, Pago, Penryn, and then up to Christmas, Palmyra, and then straight up to Pearl Harbor. Um, but yeah, out here you can see all of the activity. I wanted to go through all of this stuff. I don't think I'm going to have time. We've got all of this stuff out here that's heading down that way. Also, some supply coming straight from Cristobal, the Panama Canal, straight out to Christmas. We've got a tank. Look at this huge tanker task force with 2 destroyers going to Auckland. Once it gets down here, I actually will probably send this on to Australia. I won't have it stop at New Zealand, but that is how much fuel was that? Almost 60,000 tons. And we've got some things returning to the U.S. West Coast. And then I also have something coming straight from Cristobal to Palmyra, straight from Cristobal to Christmas Island. I like to run those. If you come up here to Panama, you send them off from here. They come onto the map here, and they go straight to them. Make sure you've got plenty of supply and fuel out at these 2. But same with Penryn or Pago, you can have them come from Cristobal. If your task forces don't have the endurance, you can have them stop over at Haiva-Oa and then continue on, or have them stop at Tahiti. Now, usually Tahiti would be the one if I'm going all the way to Australia or all the way to New Zealand. I'll go here. If I'm going up to these islands here, I'll just do a quick stop here and then up. Um, Next time, I promise you, we'll get to the U.S. West Coast. There's just been a lot going on. I don't know that, buying out that 164th Infantry will be the big thing. But we'll get up here. We'll talk about that. We got some stuff going on in the U.S. East Coast. We've got some stuff going on in the Panama Canal. New ships down here, including those destroyers. You can see the carrier is headed down. No, that can't be the carrier. We don't have the Hornet yet. That's a tanker. The Erling Brovig. All right, we'll go over all of that next time. When I come back, we'll see what happens on the 23rd and 24th of February 1942. We'll see if we get any more bombing into Colombo from his carrier task force. We should potentially see the battle, or at least the start of the Battle of Port Moresby. That'll be interesting, but we'll get to all of that next time. Thank you for joining me. Strategy Gaming Dojo. Have a great one. Talk to you next time.